I can't tell the difference between my waking life and dreams.
2022 is going to be another huge year for the MCU, and it all kicks off with Moon Knight. Marvel finally released a trailer for this upcoming Disney Plus series, and it raises at least as many questions as it answers about Oscar Isaac's mentally unstable hero. One thing is clear, the MCU's Moon Knight is a very different character from the classic comic book version, so let's take a closer look at what has changed and what you can expect from the first MCU content of the new year.
You're bloody useless, Stevie.
Stephen. Why did you call me Mark?
Moon Knight is often described as Marvel's answer to Batman, and while he is a millionaire playboy who dresses in a spooky costume and punches criminals, that also undersells Moon Knight's most interesting qualities. He's a hero who has spent his life battling mental illness, and that struggle is clearly going to be on full display in the TV series. Moon Knight suffers from dissociative identity disorder. He was born Mark Spector, a troubled ex-Marine turned mercenary for hire. In the comics, Spector also cycles between his Stephen Grant and Jake Lockley identities. Stephen is the aforementioned millionaire playboy, while Jake is a streetwise cab driver. However, the MCU looks to be taking a slightly different approach. Both the trailer footage and Marvel's official description of the series suggest we'll be seeing the conflict mostly through the eyes of Stephen Grant rather than Mark Spector. And unlike the comics, this version of Stephen isn't a rich American playboy. Instead, he's a British man who works at the London Museum gift shop and is drawn to the museum's Egyptian artifacts for reasons he can't explain. Grant doesn't seem to fully understand his own mental condition, though he's clearly aware enough to try to stop himself from falling asleep or leaving his apartment. Over the course of the series, Stephen will discover just how dark and twisted his other life truly is. This scene shows Stephen answering Mark Spector's phone, and we learn he seemingly has no idea who Mark is. As for that woman on the other end of the line, she could be Marlene Alron, Mark's frequent love interest in the comics. This scene shows the Stephen Grant identity taking over in the middle of one of Mark Spector's missions. He's clearly disturbed to find himself holding a gun and driving a strange truck with an unconscious body in the back.
I think I'm losing it.
Moon Knight may fit the Batman mold in some ways, but unlike the Caped Crusader, he has actual superhuman powers, not to mention a relationship with a literal Egyptian god. The god in question is Khonshu, who in the Marvel Universe is the god of the moon and the designated protector of those who travel by night. We see glimpses of Khonshu in the trailer, as in Marvel's contemporary Moon Knight comics, Khonshu manifests as a white-clad figure with a gigantic bird skull for a head. This trailer reveals one major deviation in the MCU. In the comics, Moon Knight designs his own costume and gadgets to help fight crime, and occasionally werewolves. But in the show, we see his costume manifesting entirely out of thin air. This supernatural costume, with all its wrappings, is clearly inspired by Egyptian mummies, and we can see Mark's eyes glow with inhuman power. It remains to be seen just what powers Moon Knight will have in the series. His abilities vary in the comics depending on whether Mark is working as Khonshu's faithful servant or rejecting his godly benefactor. Often, Moon Knight is shown to have increased strength and stamina that waxes and wanes with the phases of the moon.
There's chaos in you.
Prior to the trailer's release, the biggest question surrounding the series was the identity of Ethan Hawke's mysterious villain character. The trailer doesn't explicitly reveal that character's identity, but Marvel has since confirmed Hawke is playing Arthur Harrow. This obscure villain only appears in a single Moon Knight comic, which depicts him as a mad scientist obsessed with ending pain in the human body. Obscure or not, that character is only more relevant in 2022, a time when pain management is a trillion-dollar business and the effects of the opioid crisis continue to be felt everywhere. That said, many fans are already speculating Hawke's character may be a fusion of multiple Moon Knight villains. In the trailer, we see Harrow appear as a disheveled religious figure who preaches to onlookers in the middle of the street. We can't help but be reminded of the Sun King, a fairly recent addition to Moon Knight's rogues gallery. As his name suggests, the Sun King is basically the antithesis of Moon Knight himself. He serves Khonshu's rival, the sun god Amon-Ra, and has pyrokinetic powers. Sun King has a long history of mental illness of his own, and he's gathered a legion of followers who worship Amon-Ra. Hawke's character may well be a combination of Arthur Harrow and the Sun King. After all, Marvel Studios is very fond of introducing new heroes by pitting them against their polar opposites. Iron Man had Ironmonger, Thor had Loki, Black Panther had Killmonger, and Moon Knight may have the Sun King. Comic fans may be wondering where Moon Knight's other big nemesis is in all of this. Before the Sun King was introduced in 2017, Moon Knight's main arch-rival was Raoul Bushman. This bloodthirsty mercenary was once partnered with Mark Spector before leaving him for dead in the Egyptian desert. That's how a dying Mark discovered Khonshu's tomb and became Moon Knight in the first place. This shot could be showing us the MCU version of that origin scene, but Bushman himself is nowhere to be found. Is Marvel saving that character for a future season, or is Bushman being kept under wraps for now? We'll find out when Moon Knight debuts on Disney Plus on March 30th. For more on the future of the MCU, check out our breakdown of Spider-Man No Way Home's ending and see everything coming from Marvel in 2022. Be sure to like and subscribe to IGN wherever you like to watch.